Blind date disaster. The poor mechanic walked in. The paralyzed female CO never expected to smile again. Wait, you're in a wheelchair. This is a joke, right? The man's voice cut across the restaurant, loud and sharp. Forks paused. Conversations halted, heads turned toward the corner booth, where a woman with long golden hair sat in a sleek custom wheelchair. Isabel hardly didn't flinch, but her hand tightened around the table's edge. Her face stayed composed, but inside something twisted. She had known this was a risk. Still, it stung. I mean, come on, the man said, standing now. You're the girl from the app. You didn't say you were. He motioned to the chair. Broken. Gasps rippled. A waiter nearby froze. A couple whispered behind their menus. Isabel straightened her back. Her voice was low, calm. I didn't think I had to explain that. I'm here for a conversation. If you came for a fantasy, I'm not it. He let out a cruel laugh. You're right. You're not. Then, louder for the whole room. I thought I matched with Isabel Hartley, the CEO, the billionaire biotech genius, not some sympathy case. There it was. He knew who she was. And now so did everyone else. Whispers followed. A phone camera lifted. Someone mouthed, "Is that really her?" Isabel sat motionless. Her blazer was tailored, her hair perfectly pinned. She looked every bit the powerful executive. Except now she felt like a girl again, wounded on display. Blind date disaster, someone muttered nearby. Her fingers gripped the armrest. She reached for her bag. She would leave alone. Then a voice cut in calm, steady. I think that's enough. Every head turned. A man stood at the door, tall, broad, in a worn denim jacket and dusty work boots. He walked with quiet purpose, eyes locked not on the heckler, but on her. He passed the stunned host and came to her side. His hand rested gently on the back of her chair. Are you ready to go? He asked softly. Isabel blinked. Was this another cruel joke? But his gaze was steady, kind, not pitying, just present. She gave a small nod. The man turned to the one who had insulted her. She deserves better. And with that, he slowly turned the chair, guiding her toward the door. No one stopped them. No one dared. They left behind a stunned silence and the image of a man who didn't raise his voice, only his presence. Outside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of rain. Isabel felt the tension in her shoulders begin to ease. He let go of the chair once they reached the sidewalk. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just couldn't watch that happen. She looked up at him, his stubbled jaw, grease-stained collar, tired eyes. You don't even know me, she said quietly. He shrugged. Didn't need to. Isabel exhaled slowly. Thank you, he smiled. Liam, Isabel, nice to meet you, Isabel. Despite everything, a soft, surprised laugh escaped her. Likewise. They stood in silence for a moment. Just city sounds, and her heartbeat slowing back to normal. I didn't get to eat, she admitted. Skipped lunch for well that. Liam glanced back at the restaurant. Doesn't look like you missed much. Then after a beat, there's a food truck nearby. Nothing fancy, but the grilled cheese. Legendary. She hesitated, then nodded. He grinned. Let's go! And for the first time in a long while, Isabel hardly followed someone, not out of fear or obligation, but choice. Because sometimes healing begins with a disaster. And sometimes the right person walks in just when the world walks out. If this moment stirred something inside you, if you've ever felt unseen, unwanted, or underestimated, hit that hype button to let others know they're not alone. This story is just getting started. The evening breeze carried the faint scent of rain-soaked asphalt as Isabel wheeled slowly down the quiet street. Liam walked beside her, hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket. He didn't hover. He didn't push unless she asked. He just walked steady and unhurried, matching her pace without effort. "Did you eat anything in there before?" He trailed off, his voice careful. She shook her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I didn't exactly have the chance." He chuckled softly. "I didn't think so. There's a street vendor a couple of blocks away. Nothing fancy, plastic chairs, paper plates, but their grilled skewers are worth it. Want to give it a try?" Her instinct was to refuse. She was used to private dining rooms, curated menus, the weight of expectation. Street food was something she hadn't touched in years. But the warmth in his tone, casual and without pressure, made her pause. "Why not?" she said. "Good," he replied, a smile breaking across his face. "Because I was already heading there." They turned the corner and found a modest food stall lit by strings of yellow bulbs. The scent of garlic, soy, and roasted meat filled the air. Families sat on mismatched stools, laughter and clinking bottles weaving through the night. Isabel felt strangely out of place, and yet oddly at ease. Liam ordered for them both 2 skewers, fried dumplings, and a bottle of sparkling water. When the plates arrived, the server leaned clumsily, and a streak of thick sauce slipped from the skewer, splattering across Isabel's shoe and ankle. She froze. Heat flushed her face. This was the kind of accident she dreaded, moments that magnified her chair, her difference, her inability to maneuver quickly. She braced for awkward apologies, for the server's flustered pity, for Liam's uncomfortable silence. Instead, Liam calmly reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded cloth rag, the kind a mechanic might always carry. "Hold on," he murmured. Before she could protest, he crouched beside her. With easy, unhurried movements, he dabbed the sauce from the leather of her shoe. Then, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, he lifted her foot gently, supporting it with both hands, and placed it back onto the footrest of her chair. Not a hint of hesitation, not a flicker of pity, just care, respect. Isabel's breath caught. No one touched her like that, not since before the accident. Every gesture from others had been heavy with awkwardness or dripping with condescension. But Liam's touch was different. Steady, practical, kind. Her eyes stung unexpectedly. She blinked fast, willing the tears away. "There," he said simply, straightening. "Good as new." She opened her mouth, then closed it, unsure what words could carry the weight of her gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered finally. He shrugged lightly. "It's just sauce." "No," she said, her voice firmer this time. "It isn't." Their eyes met across the small table. For a moment, the chatter of the crowd, the hiss of the grill, the clatter of chopsticks, all of it faded. Isabel saw in him something she hadn't expected. A man who looked at her without agenda, without judgment. She realized with a sharp ache in her chest that this was the first time in years someone had treated her as whole. Not defined by what she had lost, but seen for who she was. Liam broke the silence with a smile, gesturing to the skewers. "Eat before it gets cold. Trust me, food like this doesn't wait." She laughed softly, a sound she hardly recognized as her own. She took a bite, and for the first time that night, the taste of something simple and real spread through her. Garlic, ginger, the char of the grill. It wasn't just food. It was freedom. And sitting under the glow of yellow bulbs across from a mechanic with grease still on his hands, Isabel Hartley, CO, Aries, survivor, felt something she hadn't in years. She felt seen. The days that followed weren't marked by grand gestures or lavish gifts. They were simple, gentle, ordinary in a way that felt rare and irreplaceable. Liam and Isabel started to meet more often, first by coincidence, then by quiet intention. Neither said it aloud, but each encounter pulled them into a rhythm only they seemed to understand. Sometimes it was a short walk, well, a slow roll, as Isabel joked, through streets where food carts glowed and children danced to street performers. Other days they shared snacks on a park bench, watching life unfold in all its messy beauty. One evening they passed a young violinist playing under a street lamp. His case was nearly empty. Liam dropped a few bills in and turned to Isabel. "Want to sit for a while?" She nodded. They didn't speak much. The music filled the silence between them. And as the final note faded, Isabel noticed her hands were clasped in her lap. Not out of habit or anxiety, but because she had let her guard down. Every shared moment became a quiet thread in something delicate, slowly forming. At a cinnamon bun stall, Liam reached over and wiped a bit of powdered sugar from the corner of her lip. She froze at first, then laughed loud and free. "I used to hate that," she said, "people touching my face like I couldn't do it myself. But it doesn't feel like that." "Like what?" he asked. "Like pity." He didn't reply, but his eyes said everything. That night, Isabel came home and opened her sketchbook for the first time in 5 years. Her hands moved with unexpected purpose. She drew Liam, crouched under a street light, sleeves rolled up, tools in hand, helping a stranger with a stalled engine. She captured the quiet focus in his eyes, the strength in his posture. There was no performance in him, no ego, just care. When she showed him the drawing a few days later, he stared at it for a long time. "No one's ever drawn me before," he said, barely above a whisper. Something about his voice, genuine, disbelieving, hit her hard. She had been painted, interviewed, followed by cameras, but Liam had lived in the corners unseen. "Then I'm glad I was the first," she said. He smiled, small, shy, and handed the drawing back like it was something fragile. They spent an afternoon at a neighborhood festival, watching kids run with balloon animals and old couples sway to a jazz band. On the way back to her place, Liam hesitated, then pulled something from his jacket pocket. "I got you something," he said. She tilted her head. "Another cinnamon bun?" He laughed. "Not this time." He held out a small hand-tied bouquet of wild daisies. A little uneven, a little sun-wilted, real. Tucked between the stems was a folded piece of notebook paper. Isabel unfolded it, her hands trembling. In his rough handwriting were the words, "You deserve to be seen as you, not as a chair." She didn't speak. The tears came quietly. For years, she'd been admired, obeyed, even feared, but not seen. People noticed the CEO, the headlines, the wheelchair. Liam saw Isabel. Not her company, not her past, not her limitations, just her. When she looked up, Liam's face was unreadable, unsure if he'd said too much. But she didn't let him wonder for long. "That's the most beautiful thing anyone's ever said to me," she whispered. He nodded, voice soft. "It's the truth." As the sky darkened and string lights flickered on around them, Isabel leaned her head gently on his shoulder. She didn't know where this was going. She didn't know how long it would last. But for the first time in years, her heart felt full, and the world, once cold and sharp, began to feel warm again. The night was unusually still, the kind of stillness that made every soft sound feel closer, more intimate. They sat side by side on the rooftop of Liam's apartment building, legs stretched out, backs resting against old lawn chairs that creaked with each breath. A Bluetooth speaker hummed low beside them, soft jazz and acoustic covers blending with the wind. Liam handed her a cup of warm cider, his fingers brushing hers briefly. Isabel murmured a quiet thank you, her voice nearly lost to the breeze. He didn't speak. He never pushed her to. They sipped in silence until the song changed and Isabel finally spoke. Not with grand declarations, but with a memory. "My mother loved this song," she said softly. "She used to sing it while brushing her hair. Every night, same time, same melody. Liam turned slightly toward her, listening. I was 15 when I told her I didn't want to sing anymore, that I wanted to study business instead of music. She didn't argue, just said, whatever you do it with your whole heart. A faint sad smile tugged at her lips. And I did. I built the company, broke records, became CEO. I did it with everything I had. But she wasn't there to see it. The words hovered in the air. I used to think that if I worked hard enough, succeeded loud enough, I could drown out the guilt, the emptiness. Liam set down his cup, silent. He didn't offer platitudes, just leaned back and whispered, She already saw the part of you that mattered most. Isabel blinked, her throat tightened. She did, she said quietly. And I think I forgot who that girl was. The silence returned. Gentle, not heavy. Then Liam spoke. I dropped out of college, he said. Mechanical engineering. Had a full ride. She turned to him, surprised. My sister had a kid, then a relapse. Drugs disappeared. My mom was already sick, so I stepped in. Got a job at the shop. Changed diapers between oil changes. He gave a dry chuckle. Not exactly the life I pictured. Isabel reached out, touched his forearm. The first time she'd initiated contact. That must have been hard. It was, he said. But he's everything now. That kid saved me. They stared ahead again. Two people who'd lost deeply and loved. Anyway, later that week, Liam texted, If you're free tonight, I want to show you something. She was. He picked her up in his old truck, carefully helping her into the passenger seat before loading her chair in the back. They drove quietly through winding roads, city lights fading behind them. When they stopped, Isabel's breath caught. The old stone bridge. This used to be, she began. Your favorite spot, Liam finished. I know. Her eyes widened. I looked up the places you mentioned once, he said. You said you used to come here with your mom, that it was your dream to walk across it one day. Her voice cracked. I can't walk it. I know, he said gently, but we can still cross it. He opened her door, brought out the chair, and wheeled her gently onto the path. The bridge wasn't long, but it arched in the middle. From the top, the river curved below, framed by trees that bowed like guardians. They stopped near the center. I always imagined holding her hand here, Isabel whispered. Thought maybe if I came back, I'd feel her again. Liam said nothing. He simply took her hand. Warm, steady, he squeezed it. I don't feel alone anymore, she said. He turned to her, his eyes soft. You never were. And on that quiet bridge, Isabel hardly understood something she hadn't before. Healing doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it arrives wrapped in shared silence, in gentle hands, and in someone who sees you, not for what you lost, but for who you are. The text had gone unanswered for days. Then a week, Isabel stared at her phone screen, thumb hovering over the same message she had rewritten 3 times. Hey, are you okay? Was it something I said? Can we talk? All marked delivered. None marked read. Liam had vanished. It made no sense. Their last evening had been quiet, gentle. He had kissed her hand goodnight, whispered, You matter. But now nothing. She scrolled up the thread, reading old messages, like a woman trying to remember how happiness had once sounded. And then, suddenly, a new message appeared. I met someone else. You deserve better. 8 words. No punctuation, no warmth, no explanation. The breath left her body. Her hands trembled as she lowered the phone to her lap. Outside her apartment window, the world continued as usual. Cars passed. Someone laughed down the street. A dog barked. But inside, she was still broken. Again, the memory of her mother's funeral blurred with the moment her father said she'd never find someone willing to carry her dead weight. And now, even Liam, gentle, warm, honest Liam, had proven him right. She didn't cry right away. Instead, she went numb, rolled her wheelchair to the living room, turned off the lights, sat in the dark. Meanwhile, across town, Liam wiped blood from his split lip and pressed an ice pack to his jaw. His shop was quiet now. The others had gone home. The fluorescent light flickered above him as he slumped against the metal drawers. His shoulder throbbed from where the man had punched him twice. He didn't even see them coming. Just two suits waiting in the alley after his late shift. No conversation, just fists and a warning. You don't belong in her world. Walk away, mechanic. One of them had said her name. That was the part that made his stomach twist. They weren't random thugs. They were sent from her father. He knew. Liam sat with the knowledge like a stone in his gut. He hadn't known Isabel's full identity until a week ago. The CEO, the legacy, the billion-dollar empire. She had told him she ran a company, but not that company. He had never looked her up. He hadn't needed to. But someone at the shop had shown him a business magazine with her face on the cover. "Isn't that your girl?" They'd joke. He smiled and nodded. But something inside him turned cold. And now this. Pain bloomed through his ribs as he leaned forward to grab his phone. He opened her messages, read everyone. His fingers hovered above the screen. He wanted to reply, to explain, to tell her that none of this was her fault. But he didn't, as Hornby expect, because how could he bring her into his world, into greasy overalls, overdue rent, and late-night fights in alleyways? She deserved someone who could protect her from this, someone who didn't have to choose between dignity and survival. So he made the cruelest choice he could think of. He lied, and he told himself it was for her. Back in her apartment, Isabel sat in the dark long after the phone went silent. The ache wasn't just about Liam leaving. It was the familiarity of it. People always left. Her mother, her father, emotionally, and now Liam physically. The worst part wasn't the absence. It was how fast the silence filled in. She finally wheeled herself into her studio, staring blankly at the unfinished sketch on her desk. Liam under the streetlight, adjusting the wheel of a stranger's bike, unaware she'd been drawing him. She ripped it from the sketchbook, crumpled it, and let it fall. But even as it lay there, broken and wrinkled, she couldn't shake the memory of his hands lifting her foot so gently at that street food stall. No words, just care. She had trusted that. And now, she wasn't sure what had been real. The rain was relentless. It came down in a steady curtain, drenching the empty streets and washing the city in a dull gray. Street lights blurred into soft halos of gold as water streaked down everything. Rooftops, windows, pavement. Isabel didn't care. Her cardigan clung to her skin. Her hair, once elegantly curled, now lay plastered and heavy over her shoulders. Water dripped from her lashes, soaked through the blanket she had tossed over her legs before leaving the house. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to move, had to breathe, had to feel anything but the ache clawing at her chest. The wheels of her chair spun slower with each block, dragging against the wet sidewalk. Her hands, pale and trembling, gripped the rims as she pushed forward. Each breath came sharp, choked. Rain mixed with tears, until she couldn't tell one from the other. Liam's message echoed in her mind. I met someone else. The lie was too clean, too cold. It wasn't him. She knew it wasn't him. And yet, the silence had been real. The absence, the abandonment again. Her throat ached with the weight of everything unsaid. He turned onto the familiar street near Liam's garage, more out of muscle memory than intent. Her heart knew its way there, even if her mind was trying to forget. The rain intensified. She paused under a flickering lamp post, blinking through the haze. Her hand slipped on the rims, her breath hitched, and then headlights. A car too fast, rounded the corner, its tires screeching against the soaked asphalt. Isabel tried to move, her hand scrambled against the wet metal, but the wheel caught on a crack in the pavement. The car veered, a horn blared, and then arms strong, familiar, lifting her, pulling her up and out in a single motion. The world tilted. Rain exploded around them. And the next thing she knew, she was in someone's arms, pressed tightly to a warm chest. The impact of what could have happened slamming into her all at once. She gasped, looked up. Liam! His face was soaked, his hair dripping, his eyes wild, his chest rose and fell in short, panicked breaths. You? She began, but the words caught. I saw you crossing the street, he said, voice raw. And then the car. God. Isabel. Her bottom lip quivered, her eyes filled again. You left, she whispered. You left me. Liam's arms tightened. I thought letting you go would protect you. His voice cracked. I thought if I disappeared, your life would stay safe, untouched by all the mess that is me. She stared at him, stunned. The message, she choked. You lied. His nod was small, tortured. I couldn't say the truth. Your father, he swallowed. He sent people after me. Told me to leave you alone. I didn't want you caught in the middle. Isabel's hand clenched the front of his soaked jacket. Her entire body shook, not just from the cold, but from the torrent of emotion crashing through her. You think I needed protection from you? She said. What I needed was the truth. What I needed was you. Liam closed his eyes, forehead resting against hers. Rain sliding down, both their faces like falling stars. I'm so sorry, he whispered. Her fingers rose to his face, brushed away a drop or a tear. And then, without thinking, without fear, she leaned forward and kissed him. There in the middle of the empty street, soaked to the bone, heart pounding, breath shaking, she kissed him. It was not graceful. It was not quiet. It was everything. All the pain, all the waiting, all the walls crashing down in one soft collision of lips and trust, and finally choosing love without shame. When they broke apart, their foreheads remained pressed together. Liam, she whispered, I don't care about money, about image, about what the world thinks I should be. Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't waver. I want this. I want you. He let out a shaky breath. You're going to get soaked, he said. She smiled through tears. Too late. And he looked down at her. And for the first time since the night she rolled away from that restaurant in shame, Isabel felt whole. They stayed like that a moment longer, the world softening around them in the rain. And somewhere in the distance, a car door slammed. A dog barked. Life resumed. But in that moment, everything changed. The grand hallway of the Hartley estate was colder than usual. Marble floors stretched endlessly beneath chandeliers that sparkled like ice. Isabel's wheelchair moved silently over the polished surface. Liam walking beside her, his hand steady on her shoulder. He had never belonged in a place like this, and he knew it. But he didn't flinch. At the end of the corridor, her father waited. William Hartley stood like a statue near the fireplace, arms crossed, eyes sharp. He didn't move when they entered. His gaze flicked from his daughter to the man beside her and darkened. I see you brought him here, he said flatly. I have, Isabel replied. Her voice was calm but unwavering. Because I want you to look at him when you tell me why I don't deserve love. William's jaw tightened. That man has no place in your life. Has more of a place than anyone else ever has, she said. Including the men you tried to set me up with. William stepped forward. You are the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. Your life is not your own. You're responsible for an empire. You're a Hartley." Isabel drew in a breath. Her hands gripped the wheels of her chair, knuckles pale. Then slowly she looked up and said what had weighed on her chest for years. "I never asked for any of this," she said. "I inherited it. I worked for it. I honored it, but I won't let it define whether or not I'm allowed to be happy." William's expression cracked only slightly. "And what?" he said bitterly. "You'll give it all up for him." "If that's what it takes," she answered, no hesitation. "I will." Liam turned toward her, startled. "Isabel." But she held his gaze. "I mean it." Her father stared at her for a long time. His eyes, once so full of fire, of ambition, now dimmed with disbelief. "Then go," he said at last. "If you walk out that door, don't expect to walk back in." A heavy silence fell, and then, without a word, Isabel turned her chair toward the door. Liam followed, pausing only to glance back once at the man still standing in his frozen world. He said nothing. Outside, the evening air was thick with the scent of pine and distant rain. The sky had darkened, but the clouds had not yet opened again. The path that led down the driveway glistened under the street lights. They moved together in silence. When they reached the end of the driveway, Isabel let out a slow breath. "That was easier than I expected," she said. Liam didn't respond at first. Then, as they reached the edge of the property, he stopped walking. She turned to look at him. "What is it?" Liam crouched slightly so they were eye level. His hands, rough from work, found hers still cool from the night air. "You shouldn't have to give up your life for me," he said quietly. "I didn't give up my life," Isabel said. "I walked away from a prison I mistook for a legacy." She paused, then softer. "You gave me the courage to want more than just survival." He looked at her, eyes glassy, lips parted. "I don't need the world," she whispered. "I just need you there when I fall apart." Liam swallowed hard. And instead of answering, he simply took her hand and held it tight. He didn't need to speak. His eyes said everything. "I'm not going anywhere." The sun cast a warm glow over the garden behind the old auto garage. Ivy climbed the brick walls, and wildflowers lined the wooden archway decorated with hand-tied ribbons and fresh daisies. A few string lights flickered above, swaying gently in the breeze. It was not grand or luxurious, but it felt real. 3 months had passed since Isabel Hartley walked away from her father's estate. Today, surrounded by potted plants, borrowed chairs, and soft jazz playing from a speaker on the garage steps, she sat in her wheelchair, smiling. Liam stood nearby, adjusting the collar of his white shirt. It was wrinkled despite his best effort, but she thought he looked more handsome than any man she had ever seen in a suit. Their small engagement ceremony had drawn just a handful of friends, neighbors, and coworkers from the garage, but the space felt full of warmth, laughter, and people who came not from duty, but love. Luna, Liam's niece, stood proud as the flower girl, wearing a daisy crown and carrying a basket that once held car parts. Isabel glanced at the little card table holding a simple white cake, 2 champagne glasses, and the bouquet Liam had picked himself from a corner florist. She hadn't cried all morning until she saw him. William Hartley, her father. He stood at the edge of the garden, not in a suit, but in a plain gray sweater and slacks. His hair was grayer, his stance uncertain, out of place. The music softened. Conversations hushed. Liam straightened. Isabel's breath caught. William stepped forward slowly, stopping in front of Liam. The silence was tight. Then, he extended his hand. "Lover. That's all I ask." Liam stared, stunned, then shook his hand firmly. A wave of applause rose around them. Gentle, genuine. William didn't smile, but his eyes flicked toward Isabel, glassy and searching. It was enough. She looked away, blinking hard. Later, after the cake was cut, and the guests wandered off to the benches in the backyard, Liam approached with a quiet grin and held out his hand. "Come with me," he said. She tilted her head. "Where?" He only smiled and guided her wheelchair down a narrow path behind the garden leading toward the beach beyond the property. It wasn't famous, just a quiet stretch of sand where the water kissed the shore in slow rhythmic waves. At the edge, he stopped. "Are you sure?" she asked. He nodded, then knelt in front of her. With gentle strength, he helped her stand. Her legs trembled, but his arms held steady. She leaned into him, fingers gripping his shoulders, his hand firm at her waist. The sand was soft beneath her bare feet, cool and grainy. It clung to her skin like memory. Isabel gasped. Tears blurred her vision. "I haven't felt this since." "You don't have to say it," he said. They stood like that for a long while. Her first steps on sand in over 5 years, each one small. But hers. She looked up, cheeks wet with quiet tears. "You caught me when I was falling," she whispered in every way. He brushed her hair from her face. "And I'll be here every step after." She pressed her forehead to his. "I love you. I love you more." The breeze rolled in. Salt and softness in the air. The waves whispered. Together they took another step. No audience. No spotlight. Just the beach, the breeze, and the beginning of something new. And in that moment, under the wide open sky, Isabel hardly finally felt what she had been chasing for years. Peace. And the courage to believe this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. Thank you for being here with Isabel and Liam. A story of healing, love, and second chances. If it touched your heart, tap the H button to support more stories that matter. Don't forget to subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more heartfelt journeys that remind us even in our most broken moments, love can find a way. Until next time, stay soft, stay brave, and never stop believing in the quiet power of love.